Hi, my name is Frank Zendejas. I'm a strategic intervention coach and host of SI Insights, a forum where I share ideas, techniques, and strategies to help you discover, define, declare, and drive towards your compelling future. Welcome to today's episode. Today I want to continue on the topic of grief and loss. Before I get started, I want to break down what we've covered in previous episodes. Part 1 focused on grief and loss definitions, unresolved grief and incomplete emotional relationships, completion, and misinformation on dealing with grief and loss. Part 2 focused on helpful communication to a griever versus the information normally delivered. How to identify if unresolved grief exists, and STRBs, short-term energy release behaviors. And Part 3 focused on the solution. This consisted of 5 actions to resolving grief and getting complete. Loss discovery, the construction of the loss history graph, and loss grief clues, examining the loss history graph for signs of grief. Each episode has included action items so that you can self-inquire to determine how grief loss exists in your life. Today, Part 4 will focus on the following: choosing the loss, completing, not forgetting, and the relationship graph. Okay, so let's get started with choosing the loss to complete. We'll use the loss history graph we constructed in episode 3. Step 1, circle the losses you think you might still be incomplete. Be honest in your assessment. It doesn't matter how many losses you listed or how long ago they happened. If you don't know whether you're incomplete with respect to a loss on your graph, circle it anyway. Time and or intensity coupled with your honest sense of what is unfinished or what is still painful to you. Be realistic here. If your infant died, the relationship may not have been much time, but will have had tremendous intensity. Therefore, the death of your child may be the correct first choice for you. Fear or avoidance. There is a strong possibility that the loss you've contemplated over the past episodes may not be the one you work on first. If that occurs, let it be okay. However, don't choose a less intense loss out of fear or avoidance of a more painful one. Not on your graph. The loss that is most incomplete for you may not appear on your loss history graph. Be alert to the fact that the most incomplete relationship may be with a living person who does not appear as a loss. If that's true, then graph the loss, like right now. Speaking of right now, don't spend more than an hour in this process of elimination. We tend to make simple things complicated. Here's a simple question. Which of the losses in my life is limiting and restricting me most right now? Choose the relationship that seems to embody the most pain or the most unfinished emotion, or both. That's it. Finally, choose one. You can't make a major error in choosing which relationship to work on. If there are several incomplete relationships in your life, you will eventually work on them all. Next, completing is not forgetting. The circled loss event will be the subject for the construction of your relationship graph. Again, we are stepping through the process of completing an emotionally incomplete loss. I want to emphasize that completing does not mean that you will forget your loved one. This tends to be an underlying fear that somehow if we resolve our grief, then that also means that we lose the link, our memories, to that individual. Well, that is simply not true. What we are completing is the relationship to the pain caused by the loss. What we are completing is anything left unfinished at the time of the loss. The only thing that can stop you now is the fear that you'll forget your loved one. And that is simply not possible. Okay, now the relationship graph. Let's construct it. You'll notice the relationship graph has a similar layout to the loss history graph. We're working with the horizontal line, markers representing the approximate year of the event, and vertical lines with the event label. The left end of the line represents the beginning of the relationship. If you're graphing a parent, that date is probably the same as the dawn of your conscious memory. For all other relationships, it is the year you met the person. The right end of the line represents the current year. If you're graphing a death or divorce, mark the year of the event in the appropriate place. Relationships do not end with death or divorce. Objectives: completion and detail. The point of the relationship graph is to take a complete and detailed look at one relationship. Positive or happy events are marked above the center of the line, and negative or sad events are marked below the line. As with the loss history graph, the length of the vertical line represents the loss intensity. Take note that a loss may not be a single distinct event. In this example, we see that the loss event labeled seeking approval spans from 79 through current year. Do you have a loss that fits that pattern? I know I did. Review and discovered unfinished emotional relationships. The construction of this graph will help you tap into a deep review and to discover what is unfinished for you so that you can now complete it. Here are some learning points. After a loss occurs, our brain begins to review, searching for what was never communicated or completed. You may or may not be aware that this review began very soon after the loss. In fact, the review continues periodically until the loss is complete. Here are your action items. Choose your loss from your loss history graph by following the 6 points I listed. Then, construct your relationship graph. We'll pick up the remaining objectives of the solution in the next episode. Thank you for watching and have a fantastic day.